Hello, hello. My name is Lily Cunning. Welcome to Gardening for Medicine. I host this event every year because so many people are interested in expanding beyond vegetables, right? And beyond culinary herbs. And that is an awesome thing. Becoming more resilient and self reliant is a goal of mine. And one way that I do that is gardening for food and medicine. And the lovely thing is that they're very compatible and actually help each other out. So, excuse me. Today, we're going to go over a whole bunch of different things. And obviously, in an hour, I'm not going to make you all master gardeners, right? But what I will do is give you the broad brushstrokes. I will provide you with a copy of this recording and my slideshow, as well as a Google Drive full of resources on companion and interplanting, on different herbs and why you may want to plant them. And also, I take a trip down to Companion Plants, which is a medicinal nursery at the end of every April with my herb students. And you, if you wish, can get a 10% discount off of your seeds and or seedlings if you wish. And I will provide you in the follow-up email with a link to a form that would allow you to order things. I would then invoice you online, and then I would go and get those for you in time for you to put them in the ground in May. The cost of seeds and seedlings is minimal, and Companion Plants is one of two medicinal nurseries in the United States, right? We're very lucky. I live in Ohio, and we are very lucky to have one in Ohio. It's in Athens, and the other one is in Oregon. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Hmm. And my allergies are starting to kick in, and I haven't yet taken my tincture. So I will probably cough and clear my throat quite a bit. So apologies for that. But let's get started on gardening for medicine. You know, today we're going to cover what you might want to grow based on what goes on in your family, with your friends, what kinds of plants with medicinal actions might you want to grow, what grows well where you are. We're going to talk about USDA zones and things like that. What edibles are already being planted will be a section that will inform where you plant your medicine. And then we'll talk about companion and interplanting, slightly different concepts. Most people just use the term companion planting when they also mean interplanting. And then we're going to wrap our brains around starting a plan for you and where to source medicine. So let's get started. Um, First, I just want to commend everyone here who's watching the video that they're thinking about growing their own food and medicine because, uh, during COVID, we saw how easily supply chains can break down. We live in times of political and economic uncertainty. And so the more resilient we can become, the better. And I highly encourage people not only to plant gardens, but to coordinate with their friends and neighbors and family members about what they're planting versus what your community is planting. Because often, particularly in the case of like zucchini, you get more than what you could possibly use. And so trading and bartering is fantastic. I also highly recommend, as you are on this sustainable journey, to, if you don't know already, how to can, so that you can put some of your harvest down for the cold part of the year. I myself always can tomatoes and I always can corn every year. And I am planning on canning a whole bunch more this year and coordinating with some friends. And we're all doing different things. We're also going to pickle and ferment and do all kinds of great stuff. So let's get started. First, we need to figure out what zone you're in. And when I say zone, I mean the USDA has designated different zones for different parts of the United States. And what this is about is when your first available time to put something into warm soil is. So after the last frost, which I am in Ohio, it's after Mother's Day for where I am. And when is the first frost, which typically happens in late October, early November, depending. And so knowing what your zone is will tell you what grows well in your zone, but also when you would plant it and when you would need to harvest it. Um, if you're not familiar, you can go to the USDA website, you can Google USDA hardiness zone and find out. But most of where I am, Ohio, you can see is in that green, which is a 6. There is a tiny bit of Ohio that is a blue, and that is where the Hocking Hills are. But most of the time we're in 6A or 6B. And there are subzones like that, 6A, 6B. So knowing exactly where you are is super helpful. And if you don't have it already, the Sunset National Garden Book can help you no matter what zone you're in. It is a fantastic resource. Sunset Magazine started as a resource for Californians, and it was all about, homekeeping, gardening, home decor, food, and cooking. And they've created the Sunset Garden Book, and now they have a nationwide one. I don't have it near me, but it is a fantastic resource. You can get it used. I highly recommend it. It has profiles of all the possible plants you could think about and how they do in your zone. Um, so why would you grow medicine, right? Obviously you're here, so you're interested. But we, as I said, live in uncertain political and economic times, and many, many people are losing their health insurance or are underinsured to begin with. So, for example, in my family, it's just me and my child. I get what I call car crash insurance through my employer. I work for a nonprofit during the week, and you know, it is high deductible. It's what I can afford. It's what my employer pays for 100%. And so, I'm only going to use it if I'm in a car crash. And I make too much for my child to get state insurance. So I have to pay for it. And again, it's not the best insurance. So when I can, I make sure that we stay well by growing medicinal tonics. And I make sure that we have all the basics to treat basic maladies that, we're not going to go to the doctor for. Obviously, we'll go to the doctor if we're in a car crash, or there is a terrible, terrible illness that is not getting better. But for the most part, as someone who's a health practitioner, I can kind of identify when those are the case. But we want to make sure that we build in a plan for ourselves, right? Accessible wellness and healthcare. It's also way more affordable than most kinds of medicine or healthcare. Um, a lot of herbs are perennials, which means you plant it once and you have years and years and years of medicine. You just tend to it. And annuals, most edibles are annuals, like tomatoes and cucumbers and things. But you spend $5 and you get a whole year's worth of food or medicine. So it is very affordable. You're going to get a lot for that $5 investment. You'll be able to preserve it, and we'll talk about that if you're interested in how to preserve your harvest with medicinals, not just edibles, because most people are familiar with how they can preserve edibles. And it's sustainable. So not only is it sustainable economically, it's also sustainable for the planet, right? Um, Unlike synthesized drugs, botanical medicine is a sustainable practice. If you grow too much, you can give it away. You can extract it and save your harvest. You can feed it to your livestock or wildlife, or allow wildlife to eat it. Or you can compost it. One of the herbs that is fantastic for wound healing, comfrey, is a fantastic food for your other plants. You can make a compost tea out of comfrey. It's also really great for livestock. It's just a more sustainable practice of closing those loops than pharmaceuticals. And pharmaceuticals have their place. I just want to put that out there. I don't take a lot of them, but when you need them, you need them. But the industry itself is a major polluter. It pollutes groundwater and soil, and synthetics. They end up in our wastewater treatment plants because people flush old drugs down the toilet. Please don't do that, by the way. There are places that will collect your old prescriptions and dispose of them more sustainably if you have that issue. Um, so first, I want to encourage everyone watching this to think about their medicinal needs, right? Think about what you take drugs for. Think about common maladies that you or your loved ones experience. So I'll go through mine as an example, just to get your brain working. Excuse me. I'm going to take an allergy tincture because I have congestion. That wasn't timed, I swear. I actually mentioned it before we went on camera. All right. So, for example, for me, I have allergies, pretty common seasonal allergies, right? So, pollen in the spring, mold in the fall, which tends to be leaf mold as things are wet and falling to the ground, they mold, and I get allergy symptoms. These allergy symptoms are congestion, postnasal drip, itchy, watery eyes, sneezing, sinus pressure, headaches, um, and of course, just phlegm. So I take a formula that I make for Haven Herbs called Allergies, and I formulated it, and it's changed a couple times over time. I'm always looking to improve my formulas, but it has herbal antihistamines, herbal decongestants, and herbal immunomodulators. Why? Because allergies are an immune system response. And if we can train our immune system to react more appropriately and not think of pollen as a pathogen, we're going to have less of those annoying symptoms. So I need those kinds of things for hay fever. My son also has those allergies, but one of the things that plagues him in those seasons is earaches and ear infections if they go on too long. So I also use earache oil as a preventative and a treatment so that we don't have to go onto antibiotics. And that is a fantastic thing. I also juggle a lot, being a single mom who homeschools, owns a business, and has a part-time job. That's a lot. And probably all of you out there juggle a lot too. Adaptogens are some of my favorite things. They help you cope with stress and change and make a more resilient body. I'm a big fan of adaptogens, so I use that. My kid is sort of rough and tumble. So we always have Boo Boo Balm on hand. Boo Boo Balm is a replacement for Neosporin, right? It's not a petroleum-based product. It doesn't contribute to antibiotic resistance, and it helps heal wounds very quickly. Um, my kid is also neurospicy, and so I use a tincture of things that help with concentration and focus with him every day as a tonic. And, both of us are anxious people, right? Anxiety and depression are super common, and there's no reason to go unchecked and untreated if those are things that you suffer from. So I make an herbal tea that helps calm me down and chill me out. It's not sedating. I don't really take a lot of nervine sedatives, but that is great for folks that need it. especially if you're having a panic attack. Nervine sedation is, whew, nice. But I take like a tea that is emotional support and adaptogens that helps me with my anxiety. So those are some of the things that I use on the regular. I also, you might want to think about body care because you can make botanical sourced body care as well. I make a tooth powder that we use, I make a pit paste, a deodorant that we use, facial care, lotions. Like there's so many different things that you can make from the things that you grow. So think about what your needs are, what you would like to replace in your medicine cabinet. And then we can start talking about individual herbs that will help you meet those needs. And then you can learn about making medicine from them. Let's jump into the actual planting of herbs. So, companion planting is a fantastic thing that you can do um, that helps the plants that you're planting grow better, taste better, repel pests, and improve the soil. So, this is a very traditional companion planting that comes from indigenous Americans, right? It's called the Three Sisters. And so they grow corn, and corn is tall and strong. And that corn becomes a trellis for beans. They wind up the corn stalk, and then they plant squash on the ground around it because squash is a ground cover, and it sort of eliminates all the weeds that would grow around and compete for resources. So the Three Sisters has been planted this way for generations. Highly recommended, but there are other types of companion and interplanting that you would do. And again, you want to think about what you're planting. Let's say you want to plant lettuce this year to make salads all summer long. Lettuces prefer shade. So you can grow your lettuces in the spaces in between taller plants growing because they will benefit from that placement, right? So further expanding on companion planting. You want to grow plants that like similar conditions together. So let's say acidic soil, right? If you look up a plant, and I encourage you, once you've created your list of things, to actually go through, and the Sunset National Garden Book is a great resource, but you can also look up things online. What kind of soil does your plants prefer? What kind of fertilizer do they need? What kind of sun quality do they need? Do they need 5 to 6 hours or like a full 8 hours of sun, full sun? You're going to want to write all these things down and how much water they like, right? You're going to want to write all these things down so that you can start making lists and looking at, okay, these three plants like similar conditions. This is where I'm going to plant these plants. Um, you want to think about planting plants that germinate and grow at different rates together because that's going to maximize your space. Now, I don't live on a farm right now. Hope to again one day. So I don't have a ton of space. I have a small yard with raised beds. And some people don't even have that. They have a patio with containers. So you want to think about maximizing your space, planting fast growers with slow growers, plants that need shade underneath taller plants, potentially in the same container. I mentioned lettuces, that's number four, like grow taller plants to provide shade for leafy greens. Keep plants that are prone to similar diseases away from each other because all you're doing is creating a big bullseye in your garden for those pests. So, don't grow both kinds of cabbages that you're going to grow together because the cabbage moth is coming. So like I grow a cabbage normally that's really great for making kimchi and other fermented things. And I also grow more European style cabbages. And I plant them in different parts of the garden, but with plants that like similar conditions. so that they're benefiting from their neighbors, right? We want to create a nice community of plants that help each other. Um, you also want to separate plants that would impede each other's growth, and you want to plant to improve the soil for future crops. Uh, as you're harvesting and you're replanting things, you can either replant for the next season. Let's say you've harvested all your lettuces. Now's the time to plant brassicas, because brassicas can go for a bunch more months and give you kale and broccoli and Brussels sprouts in the fall into really cold weather, and they can even handle some frost. But you can also plant things that are going to improve the soil. And one of the things that you can do is you can thin out your beds at the end of the season and compost it so that you can improve the soil that way, or make a compost tea. Like I said, comfrey is a fantastic medicinal plant that feeds the soil. And you can do it that way. So, what is the summation of these companion planting ideas? The summation is do your research, measure twice, cut once, right? So once you've made a list of the things that you want to grow, both food and medicine, you're going to want to look at what do these plants need. You want to make a good home for them. You want them to give you the fruit of your labor, right? So, doing the research on their sun, their soil, their watering, their diseases, the pests that plague them, and what conditions they prefer is going to be so much better. Right now we're in March. It's still not too late to germinate some seeds and sow them outside. What I would recommend is germinating them inside, putting a heating pad underneath to warm the soil, and a light above to encourage that growth upward. Uh, a lot of people don't see good germination rates because they only use the light instead of also the heating pad. Just know that your plants will do better and germinate more successfully if you warm the soil. So, because um, when a seed starts to germinate, it does two things. The first step is it starts creating roots, and then it sends a shoot up. If it doesn't feel like the soil is warm enough for that seed, it will resist germination. So, a heating pad, they also sell soil heating pads that you can get in bulk or whatever in gardening stores or online, of course. And I highly recommend doing that. Germinate inside. And if you're in six, A or B, like I am, your last frost is somewhere around Mother's Day. So you're not going to want to put things directly into the soil or outside in containers until after that last frost date. Now, one thing I will say about zones and frost dates is, again, we live in times of climate uncertainty and things are changing. What you're going to want to do is Google for your area what has changed in terms of frost dates, both first and last, and start recording that data. Um, it's less helpful to look at historical data because things are rapidly changing. And in fact, where I live in zone six, they're looking at shifting. The USDA zones will change. We will become a different zone soon enough, which means I might be able to plant pecans and peaches, which was only really available to people south of me. Um, while that sounds amazing when I'm on a farm to be able to have those kinds of crops, it's also a little disturbing. Um, and so definitely take a look at what is happening in the shifts as well as historical data so that you don't lose plants, because nothing is more frustrating than nurturing these little plant babies and then getting them outside and then a frost happens and kills them. I have had it happen to me when I first moved to Ohio because I moved from California. I was not prepared for such a short growing season And I was like, ah, it's May. I'm going to plant these. I really need to get them in the ground. And then they all died. So then I had to go out and get starts, which are more expensive than seeds, right? When you get a packet of seeds, you usually get at least 20 of them, sometimes a lot more, for, $4 or $5, maybe, usually like four. Um, but when you get a start, you're paying $5 for a single plant. So it's definitely more economical if you can do it to sprout your own seeds and then also save your seeds. The ones that did really well in your yard, save some seeds because those are going to do well and improve year after year. Rather than going out and buying seeds from someone else, not only is it more thrifty, it's also better for your harvest to get things that do well in your conditions. So, just a little uh, encouragement on doing research. And I think, yes, I think I found the National Garden Book. All right, a couple different books. Here we go. Sorry for uh, I will show you some titles at the end of our session, and I will share my screen that way. All right. Um, so, what grows in your yard? So, first, we need to figure out where you're planting, right? Are you planting in containers? And you only have a limited amount of space? Are you planting in raised beds? Are you planting directly in the soil? The first thing that you need to do is assess your yard, right? Where are the areas for full sun? And where are the areas that are always in shade? And of the places that are partial sun, how many hours of sunlight do you actually get? You also need to look at the type of trees that are on your property. If you have trees in or around soil that you're going to be used for gardening, there are some trees that are helpful to the types of plants that a lot of people want to plant, especially those juicy, tasty annuals food. But some don't like those kinds of plants. So, for example, black walnut, which is pretty prolific in the area of the world that I live in, if you have a black walnut, it's not that nothing will grow, but you need to find out what will grow. Otherwise, you need to plant in raised beds around that tree. I'm not saying you can't grow around that tree, but you're going to need to add soil and not have the chemicals that that tree leaches out into its roots affect the growing medium that you're putting plants in, right? So the types of trees. And one of the books I highly recommend to learn about trees and what they like and don't like is called Restoration Agriculture. It is by a permaculture farmer, and he profiles all the different trees. Restoration Agriculture. I might even mention it later on in the slideshow. But you also want to know how much moisture and rainfall that you traditionally get. And again, climate change. So you may or may not have reliable data for your current year. But you can get a very simple rainfall measurer. You can also install a more accurate weather app on your phone to know when it's going to rain, when it's not going to rain. Because, within 3 or 4 days, meteorologists can predict. But beyond that, it's kind of a mystery to all of us, right? So I use an app that I found that I love, actually, called Curate. I do not get paid for any of these recommendations, by the way, books, apps, whatever. But I use Carrot, and it tells me much more accurately than the native weather app that came installed on my phone what's going to be happening, the temperature range, sunset and sunrise. It's going to tell me all kinds of stuff, um, as well as precipitation. So install a more accurate app on your phone so that you have a better idea of what's coming and when you might need to water, right? Because there will be times when you'll need to water your plants. And then first frost and last frost, which we talked about with USDA zones. And what things do you already grow that you're going to be growing this year again, that you're going to want to plant around, right? So all of these things are going to dictate what medicine you're going to be able to add to your land. And in case nobody knows, the plant that is here on this slide is stinging nettle, which is a highly medicinal and nutritious plant. It does sting when you harvest it. Um, so the name, truth in advertising there. But I totally grow it. It is so valuable to me. Um, but you don't want to grow it near where children play, for example, or your dogs are running around. Although your dogs are likely to have a bad lesson and then probably never go near it again. I highly recommend planting stinging nettle because it does well practically anywhere, full or partial sun, any kind of soil, because it's a weed. The best plants are weeds. Um, I usually plant it in an unwanted, hard to get to place because usually you're only going to harvest a few times out of the season to get stinging nettle. And so it can be like in a narrow side yard. It also is a great burglar deterrent, right? So if you've got ground floor windows with a small side yard and you want to keep people from thinking about invading your home by windows, stinging nettle is definitely a great plant to plant there. I did it when I had a brick and mortar store in Columbus because there were a series of break-ins, and they didn't go in through that window. I'll tell you that. I did get broken into, but they used the front door. Um, excuse me. So, things that you already grow. Trees. All right. So I mentioned trees. They are the landscape boss. They determine what else grows around them. They are the bosses of the forest and they are the bosses of your yard, whether you like it or not. Excuse me. So here it is, Restoration Agriculture by Mark Shepard. Mark Shepard sort of really got permaculture on the lips of many more people in the United States than previously. I highly recommend that book. It's all about taking land that maybe hasn't been utilized in a sustainable way. Maybe it's agriculture that has used petrochemical fertilizers and pesticides. Maybe it's land that has been neglected and not caretaken. Um, but restoring it to agricultural greatness using permaculture principles is what this book is all about. And it applies to big places and it applies to small places. All right. So let's talk about combinations of things. Edibles and herbs can be really great together, as can edibles, depending on what you're planting. So, for example, tomatoes grow really well with cabbage because it's going to repel the diamondback moth, which, plagues cabbages. Now, tomatoes can also be planted with marigolds. They can be planted with yarrow. Yarrow is a medicinal herb that is fantastic. And one thing about planting yarrow near your tomatoes, and if you're like me, you plant multiple kinds of tomatoes, so you're going to have multiple beds with tomatoes. So you could do yarrow, you could do cabbage, you could do basil. Tomatoes love basil. Um, but one of the things about planting yarrow near your tomatoes is it makes the flavor taste better. Not kidding. The phytochemicals in tomatoes change based on what's around them. And when yarrow grows near tomatoes, you get even tomatoier tomatoes. So I highly recommend that. This chart, which of course you're going to get a copy of this slideshow as well as the recording, um, really goes into different kinds of pest problems, right? If you have planted some of these things and have just had terrible luck planting something that you really, really want, think about companion and interplanting because you can repel insects. You can also plant decoys um, further away from the things that you really want to have for yourself. Um, but think about pest control. There is a book on companion planting that I highly recommend for people getting started called Carrots. What is it called? Carrots Love Tomatoes. Tomatoes Love Tomatoes. I don't know. I will look it up and I will send it in the email to all of you. Um, but really, there is no reason to use petrochemicals to repel insects. You start out with good planning, and then if you need anything, you can use neem oil or you can use cayenne, uh, spray. There's so many different things that you can use to repel pests that don't require poison. Now, the most common question that I get is my whole yard is shady. What can I grow? And that may be a problem for annuals because annuals tend to need a lot more sun than a lot of herbs. But there are things that you can grow. And it says our top five picks, but there's more than five because I'm very exuberant and I like to provide as much as information as I can. So, let me tell you a little bit about each of these herbs. If this is your situation where you have lots of shade and you're distraught that you can't grow medicine, it is not true. So, feverfew is a fantastic daisy like plant. So, you're going to get cute little blossoms, kind of the size of chamomile. But it is the number one go to for migraines. If you have headaches, particularly migraines, which the most common migraine is inflammation around the trigeminal nerve, which is a nerve that runs through the side of your face here, um, into your, top of your head. Feverfew is fantastic for it. So anyone who gets migraines, give growing feverfew a shot. It grows really well, almost like it's a weed. And you can get quite a bit of harvest, more than you are personally going to need for a year. Um, but you can share it, you can extract it, give it as gifts. Catnip is not just for cats. Now, cats obviously love it, but catnip is the most common reasons people use catnip are either tummy problems, nausea, gas, bloating, vomiting, but also getting to sleep or needing some calming. It's a nervine sedative. It's what we call a carminative, which helps with digestion. And it is 100% safe for children. I make a tea for children who have colic, and this is good for even infants. That includes catnip. It's also chamomile and lemon balm. And those three things are perfectly safe for babies and just help with colic. So if you've got a newborn, catnip, chamomile, lemon balm, these are things that you should consider. Valerian, when we use valerian, we use the root. So even though it is a perennial, you probably want to let it grow to 2 years and then harvest part of the root. That way it will sustain itself. You can keep growing, and then every year thereafter, you can take a little bit of the root. Valerian is a nervine sedative. It's also a muscle relaxant. So if you are prone to cramping, valerian is helpful. It also helps people get to sleep. Um, it is very powerful. Anise hyssop is a delicious tea. It also helps with tummy aches and headaches. Meadowsweet is what we call an anodyne, a pain reliever, as well as an anti-inflammatory. If you've got problems with any kind of inflammation, meadowsweet is helpful. It's one of the plants that we originally sourced salicylic acid from, which is aspirin. So meadowsweet is a sustainable way of replacing NSAIDs. Peppermint or any mint is grows like a weed, so I highly encourage you to put some boundaries on it, or you will have mint everywhere within a few years. But mint is a coolant if you're overheated. Mint is a carminative, so it helps with digestion. Mint also helps with headaches and focus and memory. So if you've got a neurospicy kid, mint tea is also something that you can try. Wood betony is a pain reliever. Lemon balm, which is shown here, is not only a carminative, like I talked about in the baby tea, but it's also an antiviral, one of my favorite antivirals of all time. There have been lab studies that it kills the herpes virus. And it also, and this is in petri dishes, obviously, it also kills the HIV virus. Now, I'm not suggesting that you forego treatments, but I will tell you for cold sores, my cold sore lip balm, which includes lemon balm in it, is more effective for the people that have tried it than a lysine or prescriptions. This is the feedback that I get. So lemon balm is a friend and it tastes delicious. It's lemony, it makes a lovely tea, it's calming. There's so many things lemon balm can do. And finally, in your shady places, you can grow mushrooms. You can inoculate logs with mushroom spawn, and in 2 years, you will have either medicinal or culinary mushrooms, right? You can grow shiitakes in the shade, they are delicious. Um, and many of them are adaptogens. So these are just a few ideas of what can grow in shady places, but you can also, as I say, check out the Sunset National Garden book for more tips on what grows in your area. You can get a seedling or seed discount. I will send you the link. Uh, there's also a QR code on here. And it says Bridgeport, West Virginia, but actually I'm in Ohio. Um, I will mail you seeds if you get seedlings, which you are totally welcome to do. I may need you to pick them up. I am in Tiffin, Ohio. So if you are not in Ohio, you might want to order seeds from me. But if you are in Ohio and feel like taking a little trip to cute little old Tiffin, you can have me pick up seedlings for you as well. So this is me. I'm an herbalist and educator. I teach classes like this one, as well as, webinar classes for cancer support community here in Central Ohio. And I am developing a whole line of online classes that are self-paced, right? Here's some gardener resources for you. Restoration Agriculture, the Organic Medicinal Herb Farmer, which is for people that want to scale their medicinal gardening. If you have a farm and you want to grow medicine and sell it, you can sell your herbs to places like Mountain Rose Herbs. This is a way to scale it. And of course, the Sunset National Garden Book is really great. I also have a few others that I will show you. But this is how you get a hold of me. Haven Herbs is my apothecary. I make ready-made medicine and tonics. And Lily Cunning Community Herbalist is how you find out about consultations or classes. And a lot of my classes are going on the Haven Herbs website as they become available. The self-paced ones. I have one called People's Medicine Course that teaches you one herb a month with what do you call it? Hands-on lessons every week of that month on using it for food, using it for medicine, preserving your harvest, things like that. So that is a fun class to take, and you'll learn 12 different herbs over the course of the year. I also really like this book, Herb Gardening for the Midwest. Now, obviously, if you're not in the Midwest, um, there are similar books. You might want to look at Story Publishers, EY Story, because they publish DIY guides for gardening and homesteading, and they might have one for your zone. Um, but yeah, like there are just so many different resources out there, but I wanted to give you some that I personally use and I personally can vouch for. But we have 15 minutes left in our webinar. If you have any questions, you can either unmute or you can put them in the chat. I am here to answer all your questions, even if it's like a custom question about what herbs might be good for XYZ condition. And as I said, I'm going to give you a whole drive of resources about different herbs as well as companion and interplanting. In addition to this recording that you can watch over and over, and feel free to share it, I don't mind, as well as the presentation deck, which has embedded links in it. So, do we have any questions? Okay. Now, I will tell you, um, if you have questions after the fact, because as you're going through this process and you're answering all these questions that I pose to you, questions inevitably arise. My email is Lily, Lily, at havenherbs.com. That's Lily, Lily, at havenherbs.com. And I am happy, more than happy, to answer questions from you at any time during this process. You've got a couple months to come up with your plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to put it in the ground. And again, feel free to order seeds or seedlings from me if you're not sure where to get organic, non GMO medicine, because I'm going to get it anyway. Might as well get some for you. Thanks for joining me and thanks for watching this recording. I look forward to your questions. And one other thing that you should know is Haven Herbs sponsors a podcast and a subreddit called Ask the Herbalist. Now, if you have questions that only an herbalist can answer, whether that's on medicine or a plant, or what do I do, or how do I get educated, you can either go on Reddit and search Ask the Herbalist and ask a question there. You can email me, again, lily at havenherbs.com, or you can listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube because I have a video version on YouTube and I have a audio version anywhere you stream your podcasts. Um, I have, I think, 5 episodes so far. We launched it in March. And I'm constantly creating a podcast based on your questions. Now, I anonymize the questions, obviously, but my thinking is if you have a question, chances are somebody else does too. And I can make it more available to people with vetted answers, either through the subreddit or on the podcast. So I encourage you to check that out. Thanks for joining me and happy gardening.